Hej och välkomna till veckans sista investeringsafton special. Idag ska vi presentera 2 investeringsmöjligheter från 2 olika branscher. Eftersom dagens bolag, precis som gårdagens, är engelskspråkiga så kommer den här presentationen nu att fortsätta på engelska. So I will say welcome, and if you tune in from the other side of the pond, good morning. If you watch this live, you can always interact with the management and you will do that in the chat. In the live chat. Feel free to ask any questions and we will deal with them at the end of the presentation. You can use Swedish and or English. Investerarafton special is a cooperation between Investerarbrevet SE and Scandinavian Alliance. Scandinavian Alliance is a full service company expert and as such can connect any company to the Swedish, Scandinavian and the northern markets and its financing. This broadcast is brought to you by Investerarabrevet.se and Direct Studios, as well as the presenting company. Our first company, Canadian North Resources, does exactly what it says on the tin. It explores resources in North Canada. To be more specific, CNR develops field containing the highly sought after PGM, cobalt and base metals. And here to tell us more about it is Sophy Cesar. Sophy, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Good morning, or good afternoon.
Yes, very nice to see you. Well, the floor is yours, so please go ahead.
Thank you. Well, as Colin mentioned, Canadian North Resources is just that. It is a late-stage exploration and development company in northern Canada. And it's our vision to create shareholder value through the resource expansion and development of a large base metal and platinum group metal system in Ferguson Lake. Plans are to develop and expand the high-grade resource by diamond drilling, to remodel the current resource, to expand metallurgical testing, to update technical reporting, and to advance to a preliminary economic assessment, a PA, and a pre-feasibility. So if we can move to the next slide, please. So this next slide is a disclaimer. I will be making forward-looking statements. And there we go. So you can move ahead. Yeah, we can go to why Canadian North. So why Canadian North? Well, number one, because we are in an emerging area in northern Canada, in Nunavut. It is it's an emerging area, but there are well-established major companies that are starting to explore and mine in that area. Also, because we have this large palladium, platinum, rhodium, copper, cobalt, and nickel project. We have 100% ownership of the property, which is about 100 square kilometers. And very interestingly enough, there's been over 150 million Canadian dollars that have been invested in the project. And that's in infrastructure, metallurgy, exploration. There's also been an historical 43-101. A 43-101 is a Canadian standard here that all mining companies need to go through to prove that they have what they say they have, or that there is the potential there. And we can see that here through inferred and indicated resources, indicated being what's been proven and inferred what we believe we have and will discover through further exploration. We also have an extremely experienced team, and I'll get into that a little bit more, but they've worked for some of the major mining companies in the world, and they've also managed global mining funds. As I mentioned, we have a historical 43-101 on the property, but we are in the process of updating to a current and more recent 43-101, which should be coming out within the next month. There's also a high potential for growth here because there's only been 2 out of the 10 mineralized zones in the area that have been actually explored. So we feel that we can create a much bigger potential for investors. We can move on to the next slide, please. So again, here's where we talk about the previous 43-101. Now, what is interesting is that when this was done in 2011, the PGM group, so the platinum palladium group, was not taken into account in the economic value of this project. And so both the PGM and the base metals market has dramatically changed with the demand for electric vehicles, for clean energy. So right now, that makes what we have all the more interesting. And when we put out our updated 43-101 and this economic resource, we're going to see the increase in potential here. And as well, we've also done updated metallurgical testing with new technology, and the results to that have also been extremely positive, and we believe there's a lot of potential there. So can we move on to the next slide, please? So a little about the PGM and cobalt market. So as I mentioned, they're increasing, there's a huge demand for it in clean energy and high-tech sectors. But as we also know in electric vehicles, I know that worldwide there's a push for electric vehicles. It's here we have, I know it's better in Sweden and Scandinavia, but we have here by 2035, there will be an end to the sale of all gasoline vehicles. And I think what we've seen, I mean, it's been a little bit volatile, the markets, but I think what we've seen here, the spot price, as you can see on the right of your screen, has continued to go up. And I think that volatility is that there is an uneasiness about where these minerals are coming from. So Russia, and other geopolitical stable areas. And I think what that does for us as Canadian North Resources is it really it creates value, because we are a geopolitical state and we need to find new resources for these metals where they can be mined, and they can be mined, with strong environmental laws in place. And I think that Canada does that, and we're exactly well placed to do that, Canadian North. So we can move to the next slide. Now, talking about the copper markets. So everyone talks about copper, and it's very, very popular. But I think what's important is to realize that that there's a demand by 2040, that the market for copper is going to increase by 31%. And just recently in February, Goldman Sachs put out a report where they said that the spot price, they forecasted that the spot price was going to be $680 by 2025. Yep, I think we can move on to the next slide. I covered that. Great. So here we have the Ferguson Lake project. We have, as I mentioned, 100 kilometers squared, and you can see it's in the Nunavut region in northern Canada, in Kilovac. The area hosts a significant amount of mining development projects. Agnico Eagle is a large operator in the area. And, we are exploration, but I would say we're moving from late exploration to development. And we own 100% of the property and no NSRs. So we can move to the next slide. Great. This is one of my favorite parts. When we talk about infrastructure, and many companies talk about infrastructure, Canadian North is really a cut above. Obviously, we've invested a significant amount of money in that infrastructure, but that infrastructure includes an airfield so that a plane can actually land there. It also includes a camp, an all-season camp that can host 55 people. There's housing, kitchen, boarding services, everything that you could imagine there. We also have all the equipment already on site. So there's equipment garages, shops, parts, storage. You can even see there we have snowmobiles. And we've recently installed, much to everybody's pleasure, the internet is up there, it's running, we have a satellite system. So there's really been significant infrastructure. We also have generators, we can heat it full year round because it is very cold. We actually have a team up there right now, and they're basically running almost 24 hours a day because there is daylight almost running all the time. So we can move to the next slide. Great. So we talked about the $150 million in expenditures. So that's been since 1950. We acquired the property in 2013, and we've resampled all the assays. We've revisited the drill core, and we are actually currently on site conducting our own 7,000 meter drill program right now. And we're going to be returning to do the balance of that in October of this year. And what you're going to be seeing coming out, and what's been recently coming out in press releases, is the results of the 2021 resampling that we did last year on the historic core. And what that showed, just to get a little technical, is that there's mineable widths of a low sulfide and high mineralization, and also depth. So we can go through the next slide and just touch on them a little bit. Like I said, these are the historic resources. We will be putting out, resources in the upcoming weeks. Again, this is, we've not explored all the mineralized zones. So if you move to the next slide, we can see that. These are the target zones. So there are 10 targeted zones. We've basically only really looked at 3 zones that we've drilled. So when we talk about that upside potential, we have the other zones that we can continue drilling on and expand on this resource. You can move to the next slide, please. And here we have it. So there are 10 drills with significant intercepts. We've found significant nickel and copper, as well as the PGMs. And again, here you can see a picture of an outcrop that we have on site. We can move on to the next slides. Continuing, please, Colin. Yes. These are the zones that we've drilled, as you see here in the little picture that we've outcropped here. And then you can see on the smaller picture to the right, these squares are the other potential zones that we can further target. So we can continue on to the next slide. Yep. Again, this is talking about the zones. We'll touch on that. If we can just get to the metallurgical recovery slide, please. Yep, that's next one. Perfect. So this is the PGMs found from surface to depth at 1,200 meters in the western extension. So there was massive sulfides, and we've also, we've done recent tests using new innovations in metallurgy, hydrometallurgic processes, and we've remodeled the resource using updated softwares and approaches. And this is where I think we're going to really see the upside moving forward when we put out the 43-101. You can move to the next slide. Great. We just discussed that. Next slide, please. And this is our capital structure. So we trade on the TSX here in the TSXV here in Canada. We just recently came to market in April. We trade under the symbol CNRI. We have approximately 102 total shares outstanding, but out of that, the stock is held very tightly by a few parties close to the company. So there is free trading just under 12 million shares, and there's a large portion of that, as you can see, that are held in escrow, and those are released as per the TSXV rules, which means there's only I believe it's 15% that's released every 6 months that can become free trading. Our current share price is, this morning was at about $2.30 Canadian, and that gives us a market cap of just above, I guess, 234 million. Yes. So moving along, let's talk about our corporate team. So as I mentioned, we have a lot of people here on our corporate team that have significant experience. Rick Brown is involved in the Chinese mining fund at Sprott, but more specifically, Dr. Yang, our CEO, is extremely experienced. He has 30 years of exploration experience as a geologist. He's also served, when we talk about these big major mining companies that he's worked for Barrick, he's worked for Inco, Falconbridge, just to name a few. He was the executive vice president of Jinzin Mining Group. That's a $40 billion market cap company. He was also chairman of the Sprott Jinzin joint venture mining fund. And he's leading the project. He's been involved since we took it over in 2013, and he's working closely with our vice president of exploration, Trevor Boyd, who is our qualified person. I think it's great that Trevor's recently come on board. He was supposed to make the call, but he's currently on site in Nunavut and was unable to connect this morning. So if we can move on to the next slide, please. Great. So what's the plan moving forward? Well, we did announce that we have the 1,500 meter drill program that we're going to be doing this year, 7,000 meters that we're currently working on right now, and then the balance of that is going to be in October of this year. We're remodeling and re-estimated the resource to include the PGM groups and the new commodity prices of the base metals. We're also working on, defining and doing exploration on those new mineralized, those untapped and unexplored mineralization zones. Where the ultimate goal is that we want to show shareholders that we want to expand that indicated resource and really take us to the next step, which is pre-feasibility study. So that's the main focus. And, we're going to do that with the new innovations that are out in metallurgy and these new modeling softwares. So that about wraps it up. We can open it up to questions.
I will start with one question, and you touched upon the demand on the PGM metals with the platinum group. Obviously, they were not in the original plan, but as things have developed. Is there, obviously there is a cost inflation on everything, but is that offset by the price increase and demand increased as far as you're concerned?
Well, I'm sorry. So yes, there's the increase, of course, and I do believe that, if I understand the question correctly, yes, we're seeing that there's an increased demand. So obviously the spot price is increasing as it goes along. Yes.
Yeah, and if you're not digging per se, then obviously it doesn't really hurt you as much as if you would like to buy in the rigs and stuff like that. That's really the point here. And also, I have to expose my ignorance here when it comes to prospecting and finding metals. PGM, the platinum group and the base metals, when you try to find them with whatever helicopters and surface, is it the same process, or do you need to make a different search for a different sort of metal?
No, it's pretty much the same process. So exactly. So there would be the geophysical surveys that you would do, and then you would do the exploration on site, which would be the green routes. But we're already at drilling, so we've already identified those zones, and they were identified previously, and so we've already started drilling. And now what we're doing is the testing of that drill core. So yes, we are exploring the new zones, but we're also retesting the drill core that we already have in place. And as I mentioned, moving forward with more drilling on those other potential areas.
So you get synergies here, and 1 + 1 can be 3.
Very much so, very much so. And that's what we're hoping, and we're hoping to expand it. I mean, obviously, technology is advancing at such a quick pace from when this was done in 2021 to now we're 2022, that we feel, even based on what we already have drilled out, that we can show a higher economic recovery on those drill samples that we currently have.
And can I just also expose my ignorance here, because you mentioned that almost 70% of the outstanding shares were escrowed, which was new to me. So that means that there is some sort of lockup, and you mentioned a percentage where they can be accessible to the market. And what's the genius behind that?
So I guess the genius behind that was, though, that when we go public, that there's a reassurance to the market that the legacy shareholders, when it was private, weren't going to flood the market and sell all their shares. So, and that's also something that they put in place here, the regulatory body of the TSX, so that it gives a free, I guess, chance for investors and retail investors such as yours to come in and buy on the market, and not just a huge profit made by the previous sharedholders.
So basically, to sum it up here, you're sitting on assets that are sort of by the rest of the world due to industrial changes, but also have increased in importance when it comes to the restrictions and the political side, with problem in South Africa and Russia. And also you have a stable shareholder base. And what about the balance sheet here? You are pretty confident or quite happy going forward. Do you need any capital injection for phase 2?
Well, so I think that's something that you don't often see, especially in Canadian, smaller mining companies listed on the TSX Venture, is that we have $22 million in cash. I mean, that was obviously what we went to market with. We've earmarked $11 million for the exploration that I outlined here. Would we probably be going to market? Yes, as we further expand this. If the conditions are right, we would. But I think we're in a really good position right now, sitting on a good amount of cash to move forward with the project.
Excellent.
And we have wonderful shareholders who, as I mentioned, who take an interest in maintaining their percentage of ownership. So if we did go to market, we know that we have them there to support us as well.
So it seems like everything is stuck up here for a successful phase 2. Sophy, that was very interesting, and I appreciate the presentation despite the technicalities. But then again, we are broadcasting. Yes, we are broadcasting along a couple of continents, so that could easily happen. Well, and I'll thank you for that. And we will thank the viewers here, and we will take a short break before we connect the next one. So see you in a tick. Välkomna tillbaks. Vi kommer nu att fortsätta den här presentationen på engelska. Our next company, Armm, has a software platform that fills the void of security, training and education of the US consumer arms market, a market that is currently estimated to be worth 51 billion. And via link here, I should be able to connect to the founder and the CEO, Mark Lawson. Mark, can you hear me?
Yes, I can.
Yes, and I can see you. Excellent. Mark, you created the company, I believe, in 2018. Walk us through the fundamentals and how you aim, and there's no pun intended there, to make the shooting and hunting market safer for all. So please, go ahead.
Sure. Thank you so much for your time today. And I think what we're discussing today is incredibly relevant given what's happening in the United States. So my name is Mark Lawson. I'm the co-founder and CEO of Armm. And we are focused on really using a technology platform to change the narrative around gun ownership in America and really make the environment safer. So as mentioned, we were founded in 2018. We've gone through a few evolutions given the dynamics of the market, but we are focused on self-reliance, safety and training. And I think the best way we really like to describe Armm is really a marriage of Firearms meets Facebook meets masterclass for the safety and training without the big overtech overreach, and I'll get to that. Next slide, please. So here are some of the key investment highlights. As mentioned, we are focused on a large addressable market, which is 51 billion, which is a combination of the 15 billion shooting and hunted market and the 35 billion rugged outdoor market. COVID really disrupted this market, in that in the last 18 months, we saw 10 million new gun owners enter the market. And this has really created an educational void, which we are filling with our Armm Academy via safety and training. In the early days, I think we've seen an exciting kind of de-risk model in that we have an existing user base. Our engagement rates are close to 40%. I mean, they're off the charts. If you look at comparable software platforms such as TikTok and Facebook, their engagement rates are anywhere from 1% to 5%. Of course, with 1 billion users, your engagement rates will go down, but we're very excited in terms of what we're seeing. In terms of our underlying fundamentals, we have a recurring revenue model. We recently launched a co-branded firearms insurance product with Lockton Affinity. Lockton is the world's largest private insurance company. They have 300 million of firearms insured on their books. And this is significant for us because with our agreement, we essentially transitioned from a pre-revenue company to one that receives monthly recurring revenue and free cash flow based on the insurance premiums that are sold in our platform. We have a disruptive tech, which really is a key differentiator between us and other software platforms. About a year ago, we pivoted to an autonomous ecosystem. Significant because this really mitigates the risk of us being deplatformed. If for some reason we're ever kicked out of the Apple Store or Google Play, the app will still work native on your phone. So that's very important. We have a very exciting partnership, which we will speak to with IBM and what we call the Second Amendment meets 21st century technology. And this is to develop a first of its kind solution for a background check on a smartphone, which is incredibly relevant given some of the very sad events that have occurred in the United States over the last 10 days. We're blessed to have a best-in-class team that has created significant shareholder value within highly regulated industries, including our largest shareholder, who was the founder of Pacific LNG, which sold that oil and gas asset to Oil Search for 900 million. We also have Jeff Hoffman involved, who was the original founder of Priceline.com. Also, Kevin Harrington was one of the original sharks of Shark Tank. And then myself, I was an early investor and sponsor in a life sciences psychedelic company called Cybin, which at its peak was about 500 million market cap, and we raised about 129 million. So again, we were looking to replicate some of these early successes in what we're doing with Armm. Our capital market strategy right now is that we are recently listed on the OTCQB market, and we've recently launched a 10 million Reg D and Reg S offering for international investors as part of our uplisting strategy to the NASDAQ capital markets. Next slide. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this slide because I have talked about what Armm is, but I think what's important here, if you look at our images, we are focused on the highest growth segment of the consumer firearms market. These are millennials and women. And this is important because they care about community, they care about safety, they care about impact, and they have these devices in their hands at all time and use technology to manage all aspects of their lives. Next slide, please. So here's some of the, again, some of the kind of underlying fundamentals which I have talked about. This is a very large market. I think now you have close to 400 million civilian firearms in the United States. If you look at the current system for background checks, it is clear that the system is broken. Of the estimated 26.2 million background checks conducted in 2021, only 1% of the attempted purchases were denied. And what has happened is people that are not eligible to purchase firearms are going to the private market to try and purchase firearms. So this is now 25 to 40% of all gun sales. Next slide, please. Here's some of the industry challenges that exist between whether you are a gun owner or you're an advertiser. And so obviously with Democratic control of the White House, especially in the last 2 weeks, there is an increasing amount of pressure on President Biden to do something to enact more stringent regulation in firearms. Right now, the majority of firearms processes are still paper-based. So again, we're taking a very large industry that is somewhat archaic and bringing it into the 21st century via emerging technologies. The challenge for many gun owners is they vary from state to state, and not gun owners. All gun owners are aware of compliance and best practices. And what this does is this exposes you legally if you purchase a firearm in one state and then you cross state lines. So this is something that we're solving with our app and platform. And the last point I think, which is important too, is again, most people who are prohibited from purchasing firearms legally are attempting to do so via the private market, which is creating unknown risk for sellers that are responsible gun owners. On the right-hand side of the slide, here are some of the industry restrictions that I think we are trying to capitalize on. If you look at all these companies here, so if a company like Cabela's or Dick's that sells hunting equipment, there are a lot of restrictions in terms of what you can advertise and the payment solutions that you can access. And so these are some of the companies that really do not engage with the firearms community. I think what's significant for what we're doing is with our privately owned platform, we get 70% of any advertising, digital advertising revenue that's done on our platform. And so right now as an advertiser, they really have nowhere else to go. And so we are now that alternative for companies in the industry and also as a responsible gun owner to exercise your best practices. Next slide, please. So this is really the solution here and the power of the platform. It's really utilizing one platform or an app to manage all aspects of your lifestyle, whether it be keeping up to date with the firearms laws, accessing apparel, accessories, creating social communities where people can engage with like-minded individuals, accessing safety and training, which I think is incredibly relevant in today's environment. And the last piece, which is the insurance, which is a big part of our monetization model, because with the partnership with Lockton, we get 25 to 35 sold on our platform. Again, we get a check every month, which really transition us into more of a SaaS model with monthly recurring revenue. And this is something we're keen on because we can start to generate revenue right now from this product. Next slide, please. This is a summary of kind of some of the key features we launched in Q1 2022. As I mentioned, I think some of the standouts here are really the safety and training modules you see on the right-hand side, where people can take courses. If you're in a state like Texas, where literally you can carry a firearm without much training, we think it's very important to stress the focus on education and safety and training. And you see the title of our courses. These are really relevant to really our target market and really kind of focusing on women and some of these new gun owners. Giving you the ability to access customized firearms insurance, apparel, and accessories. We are touching everything with the exception of ammunition and firearms. So we are not in that business. Next slide, please. Again, this is kind of a summary of the insurance product that we have, and it's really 3 tiers. So if you are an instructor, you have the ability to protect your livelihood. Personal liability is really if you are involved in an incident where somebody breaks into your home and you're defending yourself, and it's generally what will happen is you have a legal defense fund to really protect you as you go through that process. I think the tier that we're the most excited about is the general firearms insurance. And this is really starting to treat this as an asset class, in that why should you not be able to insure your firearms the same way you would do jewelry or anything else? And we have not seen anything in the market where you could insure firearms in excess of something like 1,500. So our product has a much higher cap, closer to 30 to 40,000, and it's a product that we're very excited about, and we're really trying to push a combination of education in conjunction with insurance. And this is really akin to the automobile model. So there are some interesting products out there whereby you exhibit that you are a safer driver, and in turn, your premiums start to decrease. And so we think there's an interesting kind of analog that we're trying to replicate here in the insurance market, in that you engage with the Armm platform and app, you exhibit more responsible gun ownership, and then you start to pay lower insurance premiums. Next slide, please. This is a solution we really haven't talked about, but it is something that we care deeply about in terms of impact, and is sadly incredibly relevant given the 2 mass shootings that have happened in the last 10 days, which 10 people were shot in Buffalo, 18 and 19 children yesterday. And so we partnered with IBM to develop a first of its kind solution for a firearms background check on a smartphone. We are taking the current process in which you would have to present a license in person and conduct a background check, which is generally done on a toll-free number. And we're essentially making it more seamless, voluntary. And this is about cost, efficiency, citizen self-service. The reason why IBM decided to partner with us is we're using their Hyperledger Fabric, which is a blockchain solution. We think this is one of the best use cases, real world use cases we've seen on the blockchain, which has the ability to make impact. Statistically, it has been shown in key states like New York that for every 10 background checks conducted, it saves a life. So this is something that we're very excited about. And the second piece of this, which is not on the slide, is we have the ability to add what's called a social scraping. And why that is significant is the majority of domestic terrorists or mass shooters, they leave crumbs on social media. The Buffalo shooter posted a manifesto. The gentleman from 2 days ago, he posted pictures of his guns on Instagram. So we think this is a significant piece as a seller for you to do your part to ensure that you are not transferring your firearm to the next domestic terrorist. And so we're very excited about this solution, which we think will be ready at the back end of 2022 or Q1 2023. Next slide, please. This is something that I touched on again, I think in terms of our tech stack. Privately owned platforms are really the next evolution. I think if you look at Meta's earnings a few months ago, it was not a coincidence why they lost users for the first time in probably 15 years. Of privately owned servers, and this really mitigates our risk of being demonetized or deplatformed. So this is something that's a significant technological differentiator for us versus other competitors. Next slide, please. Here are key growth drivers. I mean, we cannot include financial projections as a public company, but really this is a large addressable market we're going after, approximately 110 million gun owners in the US. Our monetization model is a combination of a freemium model to get to scale. We'll be launching a premium platform annual subscription fee of $49.95, which would include secure data features, one-on-one training, premium content, and a rewards model, which will give you a cost savings, which is a multiple of what you're paying. We will start to kick in the platform ad revenue commencing in 2022. Again, we get 70% of any digital spend on our platform. And we're really targeting 1 to 4% market share penetration over the next 3 years, which is 1 million users in the first 12 months, 2.5 million users after 2 years, and up to 5 million users in the first 36 months. So again, our drivers are continuing to scale our user base to 1 million users. We're starting to see our customer acquisition costs coming in at about $3. Our assumptions in our model were $3 per user. So we have confirmed that. We can now see a linear path to scale this to 1 million users, and that's why we're raising capital. And we think at some point, given some of the growth of user-generated content, that there will be the natural evolution into some sort of a marketplace to be specific around apparel and accessories and hunting gear. Next slide, please. Here's a summary of our management team and people involved, which I'm very excited about. I kind of touched on myself and my background. Nico Chevelli runs the Chevelli family office. He is a co-founder. His family is the largest shareholder. Again, they were the founders of Pacific LNG, which was acquired by Oil Search, and also early investors in Introil, which was acquired by ExxonMobil in 2015. The two additions to our board we're very excited about. Carla Rivera, she is the chairwoman of the Women of Cisco board. She's also the CEO of American Tactical Defense, which is involved in active shooter response in schools. And we're very excited to have her involved. Jacob Herman, who is the global sales director of Blackwater Worldwide. He is I'd say a pioneer, a veteran in the industry, and gives us kind of huge industry validation. Jeff Hoffman, as I mentioned before, who was a early investor and co-founder in Priceline.com. So we're very excited to have these people involved in our journey. Next slide, please. Some of the other people I will touch on here. Federico Banfi is based out of Milan. He was a 17-year board member of Fiocchi Ammunition, and I think his involvement is a testament to the fact that players from the firearms industry are keen to work towards some sort of common sense and progressive solution. We have Detective Stephen Barberini, who is a 25-year veteran of alcohol, tobacco, and firearms. He's really helped us kind of navigate the regulatory landscape. We're excited about some other additions. Kevin Harrington, as you know or may not know, was one of the original sharks from the hit TV Shark Tank. He is a brand ambassador. He's a shareholder, and he will be helping us in terms of doing some marketing to the investment community. Bob Keller is probably somebody that you don't know. We're very excited about him. I call him Captain America. There are arguably 5 people in the world with his combat experience. He is ex-Green Beret, Special Ops, Delta. He was part of the team that captured Saddam Hussein from that spider hole in Iraq. And he is continuing to help us with the developing training content that is focused on anybody from a new gunner to tactical. So we're very excited to have Bob involved. Next slide. So I think that's it. So again, we thank you for your time today. We hope that you'll join us on our journey as we really kind of tackle this epidemic of gun ownership in the US. And we're really trying to do this in a more responsible way. The last thing I will say is we've recently launched an offering, minimum of 5 million up to 15 million Reg S. It is a $3 unit with a common share plus a half warrant at $4.50. That's good for 18 months. Again, we would love to have you as shareholders. And this is something that we're really going to utilize the funds to fuel our growth and really scale from where we are today, which is about 12,500 users in a very short time frame with a very limited marketing spend. And really the line of sight is get to 1 million users. So thank you for your time, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have.
Right. Thank you for that, Mark. Well, my first question here is, and also exposing my ignorance here, who would really be your competitors?
That is a great question. I think when we look at the universe of comparables, companies like Ammo Inc. on the NASDAQ, the ticker is POW, P-O-W-W. They are a little bit different in that they're producing ammunition, and they've recently acquired a company called gunbroker.com for $240 million. Gunbroker is really like the Amazon or eBay for firearms. We've also looked at other companies, ShotSpotter on the NASDAQ. The ticker is SHOT, which is really a platform that is focused on detection of where firearms are fired. Patriot is another one which trades on the TSX, and then Everbridge. So I would say we haven't seen a pure play comp yet. I think you would look at other software platforms that have a technology angle. And that's kind of why I said we're kind of a merger of, or a marriage of Firearms meets Facebook meets Masterclass. But I think the 3 names are really the comp set that we really looked at. And they have, valuations of anywhere from 50 million to 750 million at their peak, which kind of shows you that investors are really desperate to if they want exposure to this space, if you do it right, you can kind of set your own valuation.
Yeah, and also I'm referring to one of your early slides where you pointed out the challenges with rules and regulations being tightened. But surely that must be an opportunity for a company as yourself, since you're working with more or less, trying to secure what can be secure and safety measures.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've taken some key steps to de-risk what we're doing. About a year and a half ago, we retained, I think, the world's largest opt-in user testing and research company called Dynata. And we conducted a few rounds of user testing with 258 gun owners across 5 key states. These are all states that have greater than 30% household gun ownership. We disproportionately focused on millennials and women. And one of the things that came out of this is how hard and opaque the landscape is of federal and state laws. And so that's why this has been a key focus for us in terms of you doing your part as a responsible gun ownership to make sure you're up to date, because you remember the old saying, ignorance of the law is no excuse. So that is something that we're really focused on.
Yes, indeed. You recently expanded into insurance, and you touched upon that, and then we lost you for a couple of seconds. But is that capital intensive because you have a partnership? So how does that mechanics works for you on your balance sheet?
Yeah, that is a great question. So the good news about our partnership is because we do not have a license to sell insurance, that means we take zero balance sheet risk in terms of underwriting. So our partner Lawson takes all of the insurance risk and underwriting risk, and then we receive 25 to 35% of those premiums on a monthly basis. So there's no CapEx involved. There's no product to build out. All that we need to spend capital on, invest on, is marketing. So we have a marketing campaign running right now to really drive users to our platform to purchase the insurance. So it's just a symptom of our marketing spend. But again, we don't take any underwriting risk. There's no CapEx involved. There's no balance sheet risk for us with that insurance product. So it's a perfect solution for us at this stage.
And a follow-up question there, also a question on that is that can anyone else do that, or is the fact that you provide the insurance company here, they offer your balance sheet and you offer them the know-how and the technology platform to really sort out the bad apples from the good apples, so to speak, when it comes to insurance?
Correct. A big component of what we're doing is coupling the insurance with education. I think they have to go hand in hand. So that is a key differentiator, is we lead with the marketing, the education, and training versus just saying, hey, I think you should purchase this product. So I think that's why Lawson was very excited to partner with us. Number two, if you look at what's happened in the last 18 months, of the 10 million people that bought a gun for the first time, 40% were women. So a lot of the industry players are really keen to speak to this new face of gun ownership, and they see us as a technology platform, as a medium to speak to this new base, which has become incredibly diverse. African Americans and Latinos are the highest kind of demographic growth of new gun owners. So again, all of these partners are keen to get to this new face of gun ownership, and they really don't know how. And so we're that medium to do that.
So basically, to sum it up there, the barriers of entry would be your know-how and your technology and your technology platform.
Correct. And I think we have a head start. So obviously we're keen to aggressively pursue this, because the window of opportunity will not last forever.
And conscious of time here, I'll just have 2 more questions here. Scalability seems to be the cornerstone here, really. How will you acquire new subscribers to your system? And more importantly, how would you keep them?
Sure, that's a good question. And we've done a lot of work around churn in the industry. Our financial model assumes a churn of anywhere from 5 to 10%, which I think is typical for any technology platform. Again, given some of the early ROI that we've seen, in which our customer acquisition costs are coming in around $2.96, we now see a very clear and linear path to scale it to 1 million users. I think that will cost about $3 million. We think that will come down. And really how we keep these customers is ensuring that we have as many products on the platform as possible. And another part of that strategy is via Armm TV. So we offer original content for enthusiasts, which could be fun and engaging videos, training, and we want to keep them as sticky as possible on the platform via some of that content. I think that's how we keep them on the platform as long as possible. We don't want them going to Armm to purchase insurance and going somewhere else to take training videos. We want this to be the one-stop shop for these enthusiasts. And that's how we retain these people and keep the churn at single digits.
Excellent. And the next communication to the market, scheduled communication to the market, I would say, when is that?
Yeah, I would say we're hoping to have, we recognize that it's important for us to continue to whet investors' palate with news flow. Obviously I have to be careful about, disclosing material non-public information, but we're kind of projecting to put out news kind of once or twice, every week. So I would expect to see, press releases, at least one or two in the next week.
Well, excellent. Thank you very much for that, Mark. And if there is any further questions, you had your contact details at the end of this presentation. So once again, thank you.
Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you. Ja, tack ska ni ha som har tittat och på återseende. Hej hej.